Dear students, so welcome back. Industrial Property Law, HOE 6065, and we are looking at trademarks. So, well, we continue with that now, and we were at Article 4. So, just looking at what are good trademarks. And as I said last time, well, this is a very foundational sort of lecture series because whatever we are talking about here would also be applicable later on at the infringement stage. And since this is a pure law course, we are going to look at each and every aspect of the trademark directive and try to understand what all these things are all about. So, well, one of the issues is what is a good trademark? And of course, there are a lot of criteria for that. But one very important criteria is that the trademark should not be deceptive. And this is, a really important distinction to be made. So, what is deceptive? Well, historically, if you were to look at trademark laws as they have developed, I'm speaking more in the context of English trademark laws now. Some of the first laws came out in the 1880s, then in the 1900s, and then 1911, I believe, before World War One, and then there was this really big change in 1938, just before World War Two, and then in the 1950s. So I mean, if you look at trademark law, yeah, so we have looked at almost 130, 140 years. This distinction between deceptiveness and confusion is very important. So there could be a trademark which is deceptive, and deceptive is very different from what is confusing. Now, why is this important? Well, it's like in a legal sense, all right. If I do something which causes confusion, then that's your problem, right? I mean, you got confused. I didn't have any guilty mind or mens rea or a motive or anything. I just made a statement and then you got confused. Vis-a-vis deceptiveness, which is I make a statement which deceives you, and I hope you can understand the importance of this difference here, because historically this was a very important element, especially when you go to a court of law. So, what is confusingly similar versus deceptively similar? So this is again very very relevant as a a point in the legal context. So let's say I have all these books in the background. I hope you appreciate the new background. Yeah. Well, so well so you have a set of horns, you have things and trophy and stuff. So maybe you'll get confused into thinking that more maybe Pavan is a big hunting guy, an intellectual guy or whatever. But I mean, I'm not forcing this view upon you. It's just you got confused. All right. So I'm talking about English trademark law for the last 150 years. And you may get confused and think that, oh, maybe Pavan knows a lot more about English trademark law. Maybe Pavan has practiced in England, which is not true. But I have not said that I practiced law in England. I just spoke about 150 years of English trademark law history. So the point here is just like a trademark, you got confused, not because of my fault, but maybe because, it's something inside your head. As a customer, you got confused. But when you talk about deception, it's like when I specifically try to say, oh, you see that thing, I hunted that, I'm a big hunter, or I go to Africa every year to hunt animals and stuff. That would be lying, yeah, because I got these from antique shops. So the question here is, if I'm lying actively to you, now that is not, innocent anymore. That is deception because I'm trying to deceive you, and that's what even goes with trademarks. If a trademark is deceptive, then you have a serious problem. It may not get registered. If it gets registered, it may get removed from the trademark office register. And if somebody files a lawsuit, then again you are in trouble. So some examples of this would be, as I've said over here, Norwegian sardines. Yeah, so you market a product as Norwegian sardines, and then it turns out that there is no such product made in Norway. Or fillet of fish. Yeah, and well, what if it's made of chicken? Then of course you're deceiving people, deceiving them into thinking that this is a chicken, a fish product, when actually it is a chicken product. or vice versa. I mean, it's really a fish product, but then it is descriptive. So you often come across these a lot. For example, this can be quite confusing sometimes. This can also cause issues with consumer protection law. For example, I remember in the 1990s, I was while I was practicing law, trademark law. I had a meeting with the vice president legal or Asia Pacific of Kodak. And Kodak was this company that was 100-year-old, very prestigious company, photographic stuff. They made all these films and everything. But they were going down a bit because in the 1990s there was already this digital craze. Digital cameras were starting out. You didn't have smartphones that time, but there was still this issue. You could have a digital camera, or you could have one of these cameras which have rolls which you then give for developing. And Kodak was very good with that chemical part, but not with digital part. They sort of missed the boat. Yeah, it's just like what happened to Kodak because of technological changes and missteps in their vision is what later you could see happened to Nokia. So a lot of these are, of course, we are digressing now, but the point here is the Kodak. This guy asked me, Pawan, well, we have this product and it's made in China, because that's where Kodak was manufacturing some of their cheaper cameras in the 1990s, yeah, late 1990s. And he was asking me, can we remove made in China? Because at that time people felt that made in China is a low quality product somehow, and everybody expects Kodak stuff to be made in the US or wherever else. And of course, that is deception, right? But that wouldn't just be a problem under trademark law, but also consumer protection law. It would be an unfair trade practice. So you see, a lot of these issues that we are discussing also have a bit of a overlap with other laws, and all of these are, as you can see, clearly designed to protect the end consumer. Whatever we have been discussing so far, it's not really a trademark law issue regarding what is a good trademark, but rather the law intends to protect the competitors, of course the consumers, and so all of these things have to be looked at in that context. So of course, if you make a product, if you give it a name like Burberry, yeah, so of course, well, this would imply certain things now, right? Just like if you have a product like Apple, and you have no affiliation with Apple, but you are making Apple pens which have some torch in them, or maybe a USB stick, then of course that would be a big problem, because you're being deceptive, and you're trying to show that this is a product that has a connotation which is not really true, because you're just playing with the words. But that's deception. Remember, very, very important. Now this difference between deception and confusion has sort of been removed in newer laws, so you don't see this aspect, which shows, number one, I am old school. Yeah, having practiced this for 22 years. Yeah, some of these things may not be so applicable in today's world. But on the other hand, it's just that the law is now assuming that more and more consumers are getting more and more sophisticated. So that's also another important aspect to keep in mind. Now, a trademark is not good or bad just because of the trademark itself. It's just a word or a symbol or a color scheme or whatever. A trademark is good or bad if it affects the consumer in a negative way. Yeah, so all of these things have to be regarded in this viewpoint. Then another aspect is bad faith. And bad faith, I mean, this is a very deep term. What is bad faith? Very, very deep. It's all about behavior. Yeah. So this goes back to a longer period in the past, and it's about if you have bad faith, then really the law will not protect you, because this is not just under trademark law, but you would see this across the wide spectrum. Criminal law, for example, if I kill somebody, then I can't expect the court to protect me. I have committed a murder. Similarly, under property law, well, if I kill some person or harm some person and then inherit that person's property because I have indirectly or directly caused that person's death, then the property law would say that I am not entitled to get a share of the deceased person's property because I'm acting in bad faith. And the same even goes for other things, like if I buy stolen products, goods, and I know that they are stolen, but then I still bought them, then I'm not an innocent purchaser. So again, I'm acting in bad faith. Now, bad faith comes in context over here when there's no bona fide intention, and you are just doing certain things just to take advantage of the system. And well, there are some examples over here. Of course, this often comes across under um, trademark licensing. You get into a partnership or a relationship with somebody else, and then that person tries to cheat you. Now, this is again, something quite usual in law. Now, well, this is business, this is life, and of course, life is not perfect. All right, there are always going to be people out there who want to cheat you. That's the way it is. You really shouldn't expect that everybody out there is nice and friendly and then keeping your best interest in mind. And unfortunately, that's the way business runs. Yeah, people cheat. Sometimes those who cheat get successful until they get caught. So of course, you have to be really very much on your toes. And this especially happens with in the context of trademarks. It's like you license your trademark out to somebody else, you have a franchise agreement or something, and we'll talk about these in more detail later on. And then of course, this person is trying to steal your trademark and claim it is her trademark or his trademark. And then of course, when this happens, this is what you call bad faith. Now, again, in the late 1990s, early 2000s, there was a big profusion of cyber squatting, and this is something that you don't see very often nowadays. It's just that you see it's 1995, and here you have Mercedes-Benz or Ford or Toyota, Mitsubishi, or whoever, yeah, Marks and Spencer, whatever. And then they have always had a brick and mortar store. You have a showroom, everything is there. They have the best offices in the best part of town, so you go there and you buy a Ferrari or a Mercedes or whatever. And then started this whole idea of having a website. Yeah, because internet is there, it's a new thing, it allows e-commerce. And of course, this is 35 years ago, and nobody really understood where this is going. I mean, this was just a fancy term. And then of course, a lot of companies were not very sure whether they should invest in having a website, or what's the point of having www.toyota.com. What does it give us? Who are these people online who are going to buy stuff? So nobody really had a clue. And so you had this wild west sort of scenario, cowboys, in a way. People would just go and do something called cyber squatting. So I could, if I was in 1995, let's say, I had some money, I was tech savvy, and if I thought that the internet is the future, then I would go and apply for the domain name www.lufthansa.com. Yeah. Why? Because, well, of course, the airline really hasn't upped the game, and they don't really know what's the point of this. And then I could just sit on this domain name, yeah, because it's been given to me. Now remember, you can only have that one domain name, www.lufthansa.com. Yeah, you can't have versions of it. It's the same name. Yeah, and this is going to be on the World Wide Web. And if I get this for $100, then I can just sit quietly, and then if Lufthansa tries to start this website, then they can't get this domain name, and then they have to contact me and ask me like, hey, Indian guy, what are you doing with our domain name? And I would be like, what's your domain name? I applied for it first, so it's mine. And if you want to buy it, then you have to give me $1 million. Yeah, so that's how cyber squatting started out. And as you can imagine, these were a lot. These cause a lot of problems. Yeah, I mean, where would you sue? I mean, would you sue in Germany? Would you sue in the US? Would you sue in India? who is the authority that gives these sort of names, domain names, and who is handling this thing. And of course, for a long time, there was a lot of disputes about such things. You would go in the national courts, and then if you are representing Lufthansa, then you have to say, well, my client is Lufthansa. They have been running this business for I don't know, 70 years, 80 years. My client is Finnair. They have been around since 1929. And now some random Indian guy or Japanese guy or whoever American guy has this domain name www.lufthansa.com or www.finnair.com, and this is unfair. And of course, this would cause all sorts of issues because of jurisdiction and everything. But now this sort of got sorted out. There was this UNCITRAL, United Nations. They had this body, and so they had this mediation arbitration process, and now you didn't have to go through the court system, national court system. You just have to apply online, and then they would have a dispute resolution mechanism. And if you are representing Lufthansa and you have proof that Lufthansa is a trademark, then of course they would ask the random Indian guy, like, why did you register this name? This domain name doesn't belong to you, so you are acting in bad faith. Yeah, so all this blackmail and everything shut down. I've heard that cyber squatting is starting again. A lot of these things can be quite problematic. Again, you see them with Brexit, for example. You have this European Union trademark, and now Great Britain, UK is not in the European Union anymore, and so what happens to all their trademarks? Dyson.co.uk or BBC.co.uk, and then again you always have some of these issues, and there's confusion sometimes, and they can lose their trademark. And then I think I've even put up some information here. The last big change was, I think, about 10 years ago, when they said, you can have www.finnair.com or www.finnair.fi or www.finnair.co.uk or www.finnair.de for Germany, www.finnair.fr for France. Yeah, so you have all these variations. And then, well, if I want to start a pornographic site and call it Finnair, for example, then I could register the domain name www.finnair.xxx. Would this be a problem? Well, if Finnair thinks it's a problem, then they can always get this domain name registered, buy it in their name, and not use it. But otherwise, I can use this name because domain names have exploded because of the ending. .com has become so many different things now. But you see, all of this has an impact on trademarks, because one of the ways to blackmail potential trademark owners was, I would register the domain name www.cnn.com and then or .pl in Poland or something, and then I would tell CNN, hey CNN, you want a domain name for Poland? Please give me 10,000 euros. And if CNN said no, then I would just put some pornographic material or something stupid on the website, just to cause embarrassment to the trademark owner. So these are all instances of bad faith, and of course, as you can imagine, they all play a very important role in this regard. So moving on now to relative grounds for refusal of registration, that would be lecture 3, and now this is of course article 5, and again a very important aspect. So what did we see in article 4? What are good trademarks and what are not so good trademarks? So this was something very inherent to the trademark itself somehow, yeah. Whether it's descriptive or whether it's geographical or whatever. But there's another category which would be under Article 5, relative grounds for refusal or invalidity. And this is again extremely important because let's see here. Okay, just expanding this. All right, so okay, yeah. So Article 5, and you have to read Article 5 really well, because remember, this is a law course. So what Article 5 says is that, Article 4 was absolute grounds. Article 5 is more about relative grounds. It's more interested in, a prior or an earlier trademark. Now this is where you get all these problems. It could be an earlier trademark or an earlier right, and again, why is this very relevant? Because what you have over here is two trademarks that are similar, but let's say Finnair came first. So Finnair is a trademark, and of course that came in 1929. And now I want to start a trademark. I want to start a company, and I want to call it Finn Hair. I can get a haircut, Finnish style, and well, this is of course a bit problematic, right? Now, number one, what are we looking at? We are comparing the same trademark, but Finnair is Finnair. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, Finnair. Is it, or is it Finair? Never thought about that. Finair. Oh, Finnair, of course. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Oops. And now the other trademark is Finhair. Finnhair. Yeah. Now you see, there's a problem here, right? Why the hell would I choose the trademark Finhair? Because Finnish people have a special hairstyle. Yeah. And that's my company business. I have a company. I have barber shops, and this is my trademark. I'm exporting this whole idea of a Finnish Scandinavian hairstyle. So could Finnair get upset about this and ask, like, what the hell are you doing? It's our trademark. So of course this is the sort of scenario that you're looking at. Or if you're looking at Hesburger, yeah, Hesburger, and of course Hesburger is it's a restaurant, and they sell food stuff, fast food, whatever. I think the specialty is that white thing, that sauce or something. Haven't been to Hesburger for a very long time. Okay, but then what if I want to start a new restaurant and I call it His Burger? Yeah, and I sell sandwiches with, and my specialty is snake meat. I don't know, it's a specialty. All right. So the people eat snakes. Somebody said they taste just like chicken. I don't know. But say so you have Hesburger, which is a well-known trademark, or it's relatively been around for a long time, and now somebody is starting a similar sounding trademark but not identical. Yeah, it's called His Burger, HISS, because that's what snakes apparently do. His or whatever. Yeah. So you see here, now you have a problem, right? The issue here is not whether the trademark is good or bad because of its inherent qualities, but because the problem here is that it's sort of similar to somebody else's prior or earlier trademark. So now the question that comes up here is, who has more rights? The one who registered earlier or used the trademark earlier, or I come 20 years later, and now but what if my trademark, His Burger, becomes world famous? And His Burger is only known in 4 or 5 countries, even though it's so much or more older. But I do this marketing campaign, and I have restaurants in the US and in Canada, in Australia, India, South Africa, Brazil, China, everywhere. And my specialty is snake meat sandwiches. And now I say that, I started 2 years ago, but I already have 300 million clients, sales, and all over the world, and I earn so much more. And then on the other hand, you have Hesburger, who's like, hey, we started out 20 years ago, so we are before you. So the question now is, old, well, okay, relatively known in some parts of the world, but now I have a new trademark and I'm known in much more places and I have more sales. So could I now say that, well, I am more popular than you, so even though you are an older trademark, you lose out, and I can get the trademark. So these are also sort of issues that come up under Article 5, and so you have to be very careful in reading Article 5. It talks about identical trademarks or similar trademarks. And if you look over here, here is likelihood of confusion in Article 5(1)(b). Yeah, and then you have to remember what I spoke about, deception versus confusion. Yeah, so of course this is now a problem, right? Earlier we're talking about deceptive trademarks, so deception was a bad thing, but here you're talking about likelihood of confusion, and as I said, Hesburger versus Hisburger. So if you are Finnish or Estonian, or Latvian, you have heard of this name, and you go to India or Sri Lanka, Thailand, and then you come across a restaurant which says Hisburger. Yeah, you may get a bit confused, right? So this is what's dealt with under Article 5, and it basically says that if this is the case, then if the trademark is identical with or similar to an earlier trademark, then it cannot be allowed. Now, identical has to be considered in a very objective sense. So there are some case laws on this subject, very important. You have to read them to understand them. Now you see, my left hand and my right hand are not identical. They are mirror images. So if you have a mirror here, you can see that this is a mirror image. It's not identical because when I superimpose, the problem here is that here my thumb is on the right hand side, but here my thumb is on the left hand side. You see, so they're not identical. If they were identical, it would have been like this, right? But this is not the case. So this is a very important distinction, especially when you're comparing two trademarks. What is identical versus what is similar? So these two are similar, yeah. But you say, although I have 4 fingers and a thumb, 4 fingers and a thumb, their positions are completely different, because this is the left hand and this is my right hand. So these are not identical in that sense, but they are similar. But you can have identical twins, or you can have a trademark. So the question that comes up here is Hesburger versus Hisburger, or Finnair versus Finnair. What's the difference here? We're just talking about maybe 1 or 2 alphabets. And of course, alphabets can be phonetically similar. If they are vowels, A, E, I, O, U, then they can of course have a lot of phonetic similarity. Of course, we are talking mainly about English here, but in different languages, of course, the rules may be a bit different. Now, I understand a bit of Estonian and Finnish, yeah. So, but I do know that it's a big deal when they say that there is a smiley and a round O, yeah. For me, it's O is O, like what the hell, yeah, of course. But and are apparently very different and very distinctive for an Estonian or a Finnish speaker. And then so you have to keep into account all of these factors, because obviously you cannot have an English phonetics rule for every language in the world. So these are important elements. Then you also look at syllables. Hes, bur, gur. So there are 3 syllables, right? So his, bur, gur would also have 3 syllables. Then you look at the prefix, hes versus his, and then bur, gur, and that's the suffix, right? Prefix and suffix. And of course, a lot of people pay more emphasis, linguistically speaking, on the prefix. Yeah, so this is a bit more complicated than maybe you thought it would be, because you're going to a court of law and you're fighting, and this could be a big thing here. So every aspect of this counts, because you're trying to show that the other side is causing confusion or deception, or the trademark is identical or similar, and of course the other side is trying to fight back and say that's not the case. The loser will have to give up the trademark. Yeah, so that's a huge thing. Imagine if Finnair is told that no, sorry, you have to change your trademark tomorrow. What the hell? You know how much it would cost to repaint all those planes? Yeah, I mean, I don't think they're flying much anyway. But changing the name of a company, the name of the business, all the letterheads, all the visiting cards, everything, website, everything will have to be changed because you lost a trademark. So this becomes a very big stakes battle. So earlier trademarks, of course, the definition is very important here, and that's Article 5.2. Trademarks of the following kinds, which is um, relevant over here are trademarks. So these could be European Union trademarks and trademarks registered in the member states. And of course, you have to read this carefully. Trademarks are the following kinds with a date of application for registration which is earlier than the date of application for registration of the trademark, taking into account where appropriate of the priorities claimed in respect of those trademarks. And now this is again a very important distinction, because in some jurisdictions, if you get a trademark registered first, then that's you are in, all right. But in other jurisdictions, if you are using the trademark but haven't registered it, then you have a prior right, which causes issues. An example of this would be, let's say, Mickey Mouse. Well, Mickey Mouse is a cartoon character, so Disney has been using Mickey Mouse as a cartoon character, and now they have not registered it as a trademark for a pen or something. And now let's say I start using the trademark Mickey Mouse for a pen, and I'll talk about different classes and all these things under the Nice agreement. But generally now, the question that comes up here is, can Disney stop me from using the trademark Mickey Mouse for a pen? Because they don't have a registration. So of course these are prior rights, and this is something you have to be very careful about. Now just be careful that Article 5 has been changed, because the new trademark directive came out in 20, when was that? 2020. The new trademarks directive came out in 2015, but member states had up to 2019 to implement it. And so what we are looking at over here now is, last 2 or 3 years we have had this trademark directive, and of course all the member states have changed the trademark laws, and because of the pandemic, for 1 year is over, second year already starting, so there's been a lot of stunted development as far as the case laws and judicial procedures and scholar writings and everything on the subject are. So when we look at earlier trademarks, we have to be very careful about how wide this definition is. And so this is something important, because when we talk about earlier trademarks, you also have earlier rights, and so these two are important distinctions to keep in mind. And then of course earlier trademarks, well, as the definition shows, are trademarks which are registered in member states, Finland, Estonia, Germany, or trademarks registered under international agreements. So again, this could be a very wide context. Or European Union trademarks, which validly claim seniority. And of course, now comes the question after Brexit: what happens to UK's trademarks under this definition here, because the UK is not in the European Union, and this is like a gray zone because a lot of problems arise. Of course, the easiest way to solve this is for the UK company to just set up a subsidiary or something in whichever country, France, Germany, Estonia, and then they can apply for the trademark in the name of their Finnish subsidiary company, and it's still under control. So again, you have to remember, in law, the client doesn't want to know what the law is. Even the client can read. The client is not stupid. The client comes to you as a lawyer because they want advice on how to bend the law without breaking the law, how to be 1 foot in and 1 foot out, realistic stuff. They don't want theoretical mumbo jumbo about what is good and what is bad for society. They want to know how can their multi-million euro business be protected. So that's how it works. So of course, as a lawyer, you have to come up with all these ways around it, and politicians mess things up. Fine, that's more work for lawyers. So we shouldn't be sad about Brexit, because Brexit gives a lot of opportunities to lawyers. And so of course, then comes the concept of a well-known trademark. And now this is where, for example, Finnair versus Finnair would come into the play. Now, if I'm a lawyer for Finnair, I would just have to say that, well, okay, before the pandemic, Finnair flew to 152 destinations in the world, or whatever. Yeah. So of course, Finnair is a well-known trademark. Everything is online on the website. You could be in Timbuktu, you could be in Australia, you could be, I don't know, in Antarctica, and you could go online and you can find Finnair website. So of course, Finnair is well known. Same goes with coronavirus vaccine. The names that you have, all of these things. You see, but what is well known? Not everything is well known. Is McDonald's well known? Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, wherever you go in the world, you're probably going to end up eating at a McDonald's franchise, except maybe in North Korea. Is Hesburger well known? Well, I don't know. A lot of people know about it in these parts, but I don't know if there are any Hesburger outlets in Africa. So what if somebody wants to set up a Hesburger restaurant in Somalia? Well, of course, you don't have a Somalian Hesburger franchise operation. But what the hell, you see all those people in Finland and Helsinki, half of them are from Somalia. Yeah. So I mean, you see so many people from African nationalities who have now become Finnish nationals, and so many of them are from the East African side, and you can make out from their facial features and things. So would you now say that Hesburger is an unknown trademark in Somalia when all their relatives living in Finland know about Hesburger, probably travel back and forth, before the pandemic with bags full of, I don't know, Hesburger burgers or something, all sorts of stuff, right? So Finlandia, do you think it's just a local trademark or Fazer? So all of these, of course, Volkswagen, Lufthansa, Rolls-Royce, Boeing, they all come in a different category. But well-known is, again, tricky, all right? So you have to be very careful about this. And so, of course, if you look at Article 5, Sub-Article 3, you have an earlier trademark. Again, you have to read every line here because every word counts. And so what we are looking at over here is not whether it's registered or not, but it's a earlier trademark. So it's applied for or registered. And so again, if it has a reputation. So you see, there's a lot of leeway here. Law is not black and white. There's a lot of gray zone. Article 4 showed us that, yes, these are bad trademarks, but maybe you can go through if you have used them. And now Article 5 again has all these possibilities. And then also, of course, you can also have certain geographical aspects mentioned over here, and then possibilities that can cause problems. So you have to read carefully. Then right to a name, personal portrayal, copyright, industrial property right. So all of these are also, again, relevant. Especially remember that Mickey Mouse example that I gave you. And then, of course, earlier trademarks can also be protected. So this definition can cause a lot of issues, and then you have to be very careful about the problems, and especially consent, which may be granted. I've been told, this is from experience, a lawyer's worst enemy is the lawyer's client, because clients just don't understand the law. They say something stupid, they write something stupid in a paper, and it could be construed as a consent. And if that's the case, then you're in trouble, because under Article 5 you have all these problems. So again, things to be careful about. Yeah, let's stop here for today, and then we'll go into more detail and look at the case laws in this regard. And well, So it was nice talking to you. I hope you enjoyed listening to me as well. And we'll see you again next week. So goodbye.